Okay, so we are broadcasting. We'll wait about 30 seconds. The attendees are starting to enter the virtual room from the virtual waiting room, and that usually takes a moment. So,
yeah, and Jeff just tested chat, and it's working great.
perfect. So we're up to 20.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Put
33.
myself on mute.
So probably wait another 10 seconds or so, and then we can get started. Oh, we've got a raised hand. Oh, there we go. I think that was just an accident.
Okay.
All right, so I think we are good to get started here. Lloyd will introduce the session today, and there will be a recording available after the live session. There will be also Q&A opportunity for about 10 or 15 minutes at the back end. So feel free to send your questions at any point during the presentation using the Q&A, excuse me, the Q&A feature, or send a chat message to the panelists. Thanks a lot, Lloyd. Go ahead.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the, I believe it's the 8th webinar in the AWP Community of Practice webinar series. And I will be talking about that in a second, but let me just give you a little information on the Community of Practice. So, Danny, could you change to the next slide? So we've just updated the vision statement for the Community of Practice, and our vision is for safer, more productive, value-creating product delivery through improved design, procurement, execution, commissioning, and startup. We've been experiencing a pretty good growth in the size of the community, and if you haven't joined, we really strongly recommend you do. We're going to be sending out a questionnaire in the next day or two, finding out what you want. And one of the things that we're looking into is, would there be interest in us doing some podcasts in addition to, or maybe in place of, the webinars that we're doing? So we're still looking at weekly programming, but we want to make sure that it's meeting your needs. Next slide, please. Our mission is really about creating a community so we can share knowledge and really promote discussion and adoption of advanced work packaging and other construction productivity initiatives. So the group has really taken off now in terms of us talking to you, but what we were looking for is you talking to us saying, you know, this is what we want more of. Here's a question I have. Can you, the members, start giving me some information? So definitely looking for your input. Next slide, please. Today, we're fortunate to have a presentation from Insight-AWP, and we've got Jeff Ryan, Giorgio, and I'm not even going to attempt the last name because I would mangle it, and Danny Mandel. So Giorgio, you're going to have to tell them your last name when you're up. I'm really fortunate in that I've known Jeff now for probably 15 years. He was part of the team that developed work phase planning. He's been actively involved in CII. He's been involved in providing consulting support to a number of global companies. And they're really trying to focus on information management as part of AWP, and that's what they'll be talking about today. So I'm going to hand it off to Jeff, and basically you won't be hearing from us again until the back end of the presentation when Steve will facilitate the Q&A. So Jeff, you want to take it over?
Thank you very much, Lloyd. So first of all, thank you very much to Lloyd and Stephen and the rest of the team at ASI for developing the community of practice. It's been really good. The webinars, as you guys know that have listened to them, are a great way for us to get together and start to talk about some of the issues that we all face. So this is a really good format. Thank you very much. Pop that next slide on there for me, please, Danny. Thank you. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at, so the presentation today is going to be from Danny and Gregorio. They are at the center of our data management team at Insight, and essentially what they're trying to do today is to show you how you can do it. So that's what this essentially this webinar is about, is to say this is how we do it, and there's no reason why you can't do it. And to show you how the process of data, the data bank and data management is the foundation of AWP. Next slide there, please, Danny. Thank you. So that's me, nice and simple. I think Lloyd already gave me a nice introduction. I have been in the business of AWP exploration for about 20 years now, and I'm still in the business. So we are learning every day. And let me introduce you to the other two panelists here. I think it is Gregorio is up first. So Gregorio is in Rome today. And I had asked him if he could get a photo of the Trevi Fountain with no tourists in front of it, because I think this is possibly the last time that will ever happen. So anyway, Gregorio is going to talk to us today about, Danny and Gregorio will be tag teaming. He's working on his MBA right now. Gregorio has worked a couple of projects for us in Europe. He lives and breathes data. And so what he's talking about today is very close to his heart. Danny, the next slide. Mr. Danny Mandel was an electrician once, turned data guru, and is managing data for us on a project right now. He's doing a great job of basically doing what he's going to talk about today and putting it into effect. So taking it from a pool or a sea of data into meaningful reports that help people make actionable decisions. So he is living the model that we're going to talk about here today. Okay, anybody recognize that? Of course, this is a one-way conversation, so probably. All right, so this is a prompt for me to talk to you guys about, or to have a safety talk. So it seems like it's appropriate that we should talk about the coronavirus, and of course I'm going to mix that a little bit with data. I'm going to talk about for our safety talk today, I'm going to talk about the data that goes with the coronavirus. And I think what's happening now is that the world is sort of waking up to the idea that that there is data and science behind what's happening to us, and we're starting to get a different picture of how to combat the coronavirus. Initially, it was fear and emotion that drove us to decisions that we made, and now you see more and more people scrutinizing the data and making decisions based on that data. So I guess as a safety point, I would say this is a great example, and it fits really good with our presentation today, that real safety and really improved safety should be based on data. And I think that's what we will see develop from our current situation with the coronavirus. Okay, next slide, please, Danny. Okay, so just to introduce the actual subject, you guys will be familiar with the surfboard. The blue and the brown portions are the the CII surfboard model that we've seen lots of. The green surfboards at the bottom is what we're talking about here today, the information management portion. Now, the information management portion is not part of the original surfboard model, but it is essentially what we're here to talk about today, and that is that if we want work packages and we want foremen to end up with work packages, then you need a data management system that enables that. And so I think this is one of our real frontiers. And this slide is basically just to show you that it fits and supports the CII model. Next slide, please, Danny. Thank you. Okay, so this is a good place to start. just for 10,000 foot view of what are we talking about here today, or what's different with AWP. And a lot of you guys are living this, I know, and experiencing it, and there's way more detail to it than what this diagram is giving us. But essentially, we used to go engineering to procurement to, okay, guys on the site, try to match drawings to components and do the best you can. And essentially what's happened in an AWP world, and I think Robin Mickelson is probably on this call, and I know Robin was one of the guys that was waving this flag for a long time, essentially saying, hey, we've got to get construction out in front. So this is sort of that model that Robin talked about, where he said, we've got to get construction basically laying the roadmap for engineering and procurement. And that's the real difference with AWP, is we've got a construction roadmap, and then engineering and procurement follow that roadmap and that sequence of delivery in order to facilitate construction. Not news to anybody. Most everybody on the call already understands that. This is just a foundation of what we're going to talk about. Okay, and I think that brings up, is this Danny or Gregorio? Who's up first?
It's me. Thank you, Jeff. Gregorio. So welcome everybody. I'm Gregorio Labozzetta. Jeff presented me before. Thank you. And me and Danny were thinking to make it pretty interactive. So from now on, please feel free to intervene and ask questions if you want, especially if you don't understand maybe something. So first of all, 2017, only 3% of companies' data meets basic quality standards. So this is a study that was done by Harvard Business Review. And what they did, it's really simple. They took 75 executives that before then did never have, let's say, a detailed view of the data of their company, and they asked those executives to assess this data. And the result was pretty amazing, because only the 3% of those executives gave a, let's say, satisfactory evaluation to those data. All of the remaining said that in some way those data were not as good as they expected. So the reason why I wanted to show to you this, it's that the feeling that I have, and also Danny and Jeff have, it's that we think that most of the times we think that our data are good, but then when we go into the weeds, we realize that it's not like this. And this happens most of the times. And unfortunately, the people that are realizing that data are not good are not the executives. So are the people that are working with data, people like me. So what we will do today, we will, let's say, bring to you, which are the most important aspect of information management and data management. And then in the end, we're gonna make a very little example of how we can improve the quality of our data. And needless to say, this has a direct impact on the business. So, Danny?
Okay, thank you, Greg. Good day to all. It's Danny Mandel here now. So speaking about attaining success in information management, so we really feel that there are 5 pillars to that. Number 1 being the ownership, 2 being planning for the data, number 3 is storing it all in one place, 4 is connecting people to the data, and the 5th one is investing in the knowledge base. So as far as number 1 goes, and ownership, it really boils down to having data owners. And as we'll go through the presentation here, you'll see what we're talking about in regards to the data bank. But each stream of data in the data bank is really has to be owned by a data owner. And typically what we do is, there's one person who has the permission, and maybe one backup, but we create a data map, and there is one person who is responsible for that data, right? That is the human being that is responsible for uploading and refreshing the correct data to the place. So the second one being plan for your data. What do we mean by that is if we look at our projects, every single project has all kinds of plans. So we have project execution plans, safety plans, quality plans, and many more. The one thing that we see room for improvement in is the area of planning for our data, and we're going to talk about that. But the first one being the data management plan and the information management plan. So planning for your data is certainly a pillar. Number three, keeping it in one place. So creating a data bank, and we'll show you a very cheap and quick example of how you can facilitate that on your projects. But making sure that it's all in one place. So I've said this before, but you know, if I was the project director for some of these mega projects, I would really try and make a rule where exchanging Excel sheets before meetings and you know, using that as people from the project just creating Excel sheets on their own is probably not a good thing, and it leads to all kinds of confusion. So if I was the director, you know, I would look at implementing a rule where that's not allowed on the project, and everybody gets their data from one place. And certainly what we see on our projects is that you know, we create our reports and so on from the data bank, but we also give access to you know, a lot of times it's the project controls department or the safety department who wants to use the data and facilitate some of their own reports or one-off reports, you know, not necessarily a sanctioned project report, but it allows them to draw the data from one place, as opposed to the safety person emailing the person in project controls and saying, hey, give me the latest report. And you know, you guys are very familiar with that story, but you know, really keeping it in one place and only allowing access to that one place. So number four being connecting people to the data. So there are many different ways of doing that, you know, through applications, whether complex or relatively simple, and then of course through business intelligence, through reporting and so on and so forth. So connecting people to the right data, which is available in the data bank, which is planned accordingly, and which is owned and documented as such. And the last one, of course, is investing in the knowledge base. Professional and personal development is key. If we've all seen the slides where the construction industry is like, you know, one of the very, very bottom as far as a growth throughout the decades. And so we really need to change that trajectory, and we need to continue to grow. One example that I want to give is from Microsoft. So let me preface that by saying that almost everything in our presentation is in relation to Microsoft. And that is because virtually all of our clients are partnered with Microsoft. So that's a very easy partnership for us to create as well. But in all of the examples, you can swap Microsoft with Amazon or IBM or Google or the other hundreds of other providers, small and large. So, you know, just want to preface that a lot of times we're saying specifically Microsoft, and you don't need to use specifically Microsoft. There are tons of options out there. But back to Microsoft. So Power BI, you know, has been worked on by Microsoft for about a decade. You know, they started working on it in about 2010. And from 2016, there is a new version. There's an update to Power BI every single month. So for the past 4 years, there's a new update every single month. And that is, you know, that's what we need to, we need to strive for that kind of flexibility and increase in knowledge and continually adapting the new technology stack that's available to us. So those are our 5 pillars, and we're going to get into the details now.
So this is again Gregorio. So during our weekly and daily sessions, me and Dani, we started working at what is, in our opinion, the best combination to bring the team to success when it regards to data and information. So the one that you see is the combination that we feel is the most successful one. And probably some of those blocks are new for you. Let me go very quickly through them. So the first one is we're going to start from the yellow boxes. So this is our dream team. So the first component of the dream team is the data modeler. So the data modeler is the one that is in charge to go to talk to data sources, so to people that are providing data, and make some kind of agreements with them. And the typical kind of agreement can be something like this. So let's imagine that I'm the data modeler and Danny is the data source. I go to Danny and I say, Danny, look, I know that you have that specific Excel file. I want to put that file into the data bank so that it's available for the project. Why don't we start saving that file every Tuesday at 10 o'clock in this specific folder so that I can pull it to the data bank? And moreover, let's open that file and let's adjust the columns. Let's add the status or let's add that specific column, or even more, let's adapt that file to the context. So this is something that I've seen in my experience. Many people forget, but producing data, it's not enough. So if you produce data and you don't take care about the fact that these data one day are gonna being brought into a context with a lot of other data, you miss a big part of the picture. So the role of the data modeler is exactly this one. Then we have the data analyst. The data analyst is someone that is being able to take the data that the data modeler provided and connect those data to the people of the project in many ways. Can be visual, can be through meeting, presentation, whatever. But the role of the data analyst is very important because he is the one that is, let's say, giving you the return on investment, okay? Because he's the one that is informing people of the project. Then the third block is the 3D model admin. So the 3D model admin is the one that is taking the data provided by the data modeler, making some considerations on the visuals produced by the data analyst, and implementing those into the 3D model, which is very important for our projects. Then we see a fourth position, that is the cloud admin. So whether you have 10, 50, 100, 300 people participating into a project, you need a specific skill set that is able to, let's say, manage those flows of information between people and folders. Okay, so this is very important. Taking care about how data are connected with people and people are connected with data, pass also from regulating accesses, giving permissions, for example, and understanding what is the best way to optimize communication. And yeah, I read one of the comments is get IT to uninstall Excel from everyone's PC. So IT doesn't know many times what are the daily problems that people that are affecting the business have. And one of the most important roles is the cloud admin, because he is the one that is gonna call the guy that has problems in Excel and is gonna solve them now, not in 4 days. Along with these four, we have the construction superintendent. We have put the construction superintendent just to say that we need somebody that is knowledgeable about construction. Okay, so whereas the data analyst and the 3D model and the cloud admin can be taken from other businesses, even from non-construction businesses, the construction, let's say the data modeler and the fifth blocks needs to be, let's say, knowledgeable about construction. So we see always a construction resource present. And then on the top of the pyramid, there is the information manager. So the information manager is key because it's the one that is entitled, is in charge to bring this team to success. And his role can start from writing procedures. We're going to see later information management plan and data management plan, but also making sure that the needs of the team, the data modeler, the data analyst, and so on, are being heard by the project, which is something that usually it's really difficult to get, no? Also for the reasons that Danny mentioned before. We do quality management plan, we do construction management plan, project management plan, but we not always do data and an information management plan.
Perfect. Hey, so I see a couple questions here. Let's, from Eric, elaborate which roles are typically full-time positions for major and smaller projects. Let's attack this one real quick here. So it really depends on the resources that you're able to find. For example, if you look at a resource like Gregorio, he's able to do data modeler, data analyst, as well as 3D model admin. So and he's also managing the cloud to a certain degree. So I mean, on a smaller project, if you are constrained, you can find resources that probably you can throw them all in the same bag. And then of course, construction superintendent is going to be part of any project in one fashion or another. In reality, the clients and projects that we've been a part of are typically much larger, and in all reality, we see one of each of these. Many times the cloud admin is not always a full-time role for that single project, but typically the modeler, analyst, and 3D model, I mean, those guys are all separate positions. So that's typically what we see. And I think, a lot of times I would also like to go back, a few years ago when everything was catching a lot of steam at the conferences, I used to hear a lot of comments about, where do I find these people, these resources, and then I would call them unicorns, because the recommendation was, we need somebody that has 20 years of experience, 10 years of supervisory experience, is a master in IT, and can whip up formulas in Excel like you wouldn't believe. So those people are real few and far between. So it really depends on what resources you're able to attain. And I think as time progresses, that's only the future is getting brighter and brighter for us. But yeah, certainly you can combine some of these on the smaller projects, but we don't see that too often. And then down to another question from Kaylee was, how is the quality of data assessed? And we're definitely going to get to that in these next few slides right now. So there are two plans that we're talking about. The first one is the information management plan, and the second one is the data management plan. So the first one, information management plan, is really connecting people to the data. And what do we mean by that is the sharing of data, which is very important, the communication of data, which is not the same thing and equally as important. How does the project access all of that data? And it needs to be smart and quick. It needs to be elegant and definitely user friendly. Otherwise, it gets put to the wayside, and we go back to emailing Excel sheets to each other. So if we look at that information management plan from a little bit of more detailed, more granular level, you can start from the ingredients. So number one, let's talk about the organization's systems and platforms that your particular project is using. So on many of the projects, there may be one or two engineering teams, maybe one for ISBL, one for OSBL, so on and so forth. There may be a construction management and project management team, numerous contractors and subcontractors. So starting from the ingredients and understanding what systems do they already use is very, very important, because a lot of times databases speak very, very well amongst each other, and being able to align on what systems your chosen contractors already have in place is going to save you a lot of time and energy. Once you have that figured out, you can start collecting the requirements. So what are your requirements? What are you trying to achieve on this project that maybe you haven't in other projects, or what are you trying to improve on? So collecting those requirements from the recognized stakeholders would probably be step number two. Then you would probably start to align information management team, which would be very close to that slide that Gregorio just spoke to. I know that it kind of looks like an org chart, and it looked like the construction superintendent was reporting to the IM manager, and that's obviously not the case. So we're just trying to illustrate that you really need to have a construction expertise or construction mindset behind a lot of these systems. Otherwise, they're gonna fall down. And so, once you have the team identified, you really need to build that plan inside of your P6 schedule or whatever kind of schedule that you're using, you know. So a lot of times, again, we're going to go back to the example about all the other type of execution plans we have. We rarely, if ever, see a milestone in the P6 schedule that talks about integrating the engineering material database to the construction database. And you know, the IM team knows that we need to do that, but it's not visible to the management team. It's not visible to the stakeholders. And so, like the old saying says, you know, what you don't see, you don't manage. So we're really advocating, you know, putting in milestones into the schedule and really making it part of the project, not just some kind of sidebar activity. And then once you have that, of course, we're going to go back, excuse me, and then control and monitor those activities. So one of the points that Gregorio made was 1 month equals 1 year, and it sounds a little bit confusing, but if we could just explain that a little bit, you know, things move so fast in the IM world that a lot of times what you may expect or you may think is going to take 1 year worth of time, or you may, you know, or it literally changes from 1 month to the other, and it seems like it might be a year's worth of information or a year's worth of data and changes. It happens very, very rapidly, and it's really the point we're trying to make here is to revisit it on a monthly basis. So that would probably be a function of the IM manager and their team, and to revisit the plan and the milestones and revisit on a monthly basis.
Danny,
yeah.
One point on this. So 1 month equal 1 year. For me, it has also another meaning, and the meaning is that the technology is changing so fast that we really need to have that average level of knowledge on these systems. So especially for people that are having roles of coordination or that are implementing these frameworks in the organizations, the message is that you cannot not know, okay? And the second message is that if you know too much, probably it's too much. Next month, you're gonna have to know something else. So set your, let's say, learning process to a level that is able to, let's say, last during the time. Because every month is changing. Every month there is something new. And we need to use it. So new is good.
You want to keep going on data management plan, Gregorio?
Yeah, so let's say going one level below the information management plan, we have the data management plan. So unlike the information management plan, the data management plan is something that we have to do in an agile way. Okay, data in a project are dynamic. We see many people that are trying to plan for data, but most of the times the methodology or let's say the process fails because data are dynamics. They change a lot, and the context change a lot. So the solution that me and Danny, but we are not the first to do that, are bringing into our projects is an agile way to plan for the data. And to explain this to you, we have taken an example from another business. So let's see what other businesses are doing. And the picture that you see here is a data model that we have taken from an example provided by SQL BY. So I want to thank my two teachers, Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari, for this. So this is a data model. What is a data model? A data model basically is a group of tables that are linked by some fields. Okay. So looking at this picture, we see that in the center we have two fact tables, one sales table and one sales detail table. So two fact tables are two tables that are describing some facts, so things that have happened. And then around these tables, we see dimensions. So each dimension basically is a table that is describing some quality. Okay, so to explain it better, a fact table can be the sale of a cloth, and the dimension can be the quality of that cloth or the customer that have bought that cloth. So we asked ourselves how we can implement this into the AWP world, and what we have found is that is exactly the same. From the data perspective, companies that are selling clothes, that are selling other products, they have the same data problem as construction projects. So they have facts and dimensions. So we just removed sales and replaced it with EWPs, removed the sales detail and replaced with CWPs, and then put around each block the dimension. And this is the way we do plan for data. So this is the way that every day we open our folders and we try to understand as information managers how these data are communicating between each other. And what we are going to do now, me and Danny, we are going to show you an example on how we, let's say, linked tables from an AWP model, and how we, let's say, simulate the work of the data analyst and the data modeler in producing meaningful information for the project.
Okay, awesome. So I think we're right on schedule here, which is fantastic. So one thing that I would like to bring up is I wanted to create a relationship or kind of draw a picture between our industry and some of the technology stacks that we can use and the airline industry. You know, in the airline industry, there are many different airlines to choose from, and some of them are what they call ultra low cost carriers. You know, for example, Spirit Airlines or Frontier or Ryanair in Europe, you know, those type of airlines. So they still get you to where you need to go for a much lower cost in comparison to other airlines. And what we want to show you is that, you know, there are obviously a ton of different products and services that you can use, and there are different reasons to buy a Spirit Airlines ticket versus United Airlines or an Air Canada ticket. But what we want to focus on a little bit here is show you a demonstration of a quick and easy and cheap way of attaining these things that we're talking about in this presentation. So if we look at the data bank, I will show you what we do with our data bank, and that's really a OneDrive folder. So again, from Microsoft OneDrive, and it's a shared folder with the respective data owners. So each data owner has the permissions to update the Excel file within that folder only. So the data, we satisfy our requirement for maximum data ownership. We use the Microsoft Azure cloud, as well as the SQL service that's available in that cloud, the free and paid application software from Microsoft, and then we visualize it in Power BI from Microsoft. So if we could show you a quick demonstration. So one thing that I wanted to demonstrate was really how cheap it is to create a SQL server. So if you go to Microsoft Azure and you open an account, you can create a service, you can open a SQL database, and I wanted to show you here just how cheap it is. So if you go to the most basic one, this tenant is registered in Canada, so it's $6.40 Canadian, so $5 real dollars. You know, $5 a month on real projects. We're typically using this service, which is like $20 a month. You know, up to $80 a month. 250 gigabytes of data, a lot. You know, and it's fully scalable, right? You can go up and down in the computing power. So don't want to spend any time on this, but just wanted to show you, you know, really how cheap it is. The second thing I wanted to show you was an example of our OneDrive. So here we just put our sample webinar files into a OneDrive that's all in one folder. But typically what we would do is we would create individual folders and assign permissions to just the data owner. So if we look at any one of these files, again, very, very simplified versions, and when on projects we have a lot of experience understanding exactly which columns we need and what we don't need, and so on and so forth. So this is just a very simplified example, but you have a CWP, a plan start and plan finish date. You know, for example, you may have a pack track. In your pack track, you have some of the columns that you would expect there. Also wanted to touch note over here that this would be part of the data modeler role. So if you can see here that we have two columns, one being CWP and one being IWP. The function of that data modeler is to make everyone else's life easy. So they know that we need to relate IWPs back to CWPs. So they include it in as part of our table, as part of the structure. And there was another question about, you know, what makes up the quality of data, and you know, that's really going to be inside of your data management and information management plan. When you're connecting data to data, you have to understand what data it is that you need, in what format it is that you need it, and so that the data analyst and modeler and everybody downhill from there can do their job accordingly. So that's an example of the Excel files. If we look at SQL Server, so we've connected to our test instance in Microsoft Azure. I just want to prove to you that we have deleted all the rows in those tables. So if I run it again, there are 0 rows to be deleted. So these are our 6 tables in the cloud. If I open any one of these tables, you can see that there are 0 rows. So there's no information, everything has been deleted. One of the most important things that we need to attain is to be able to have refreshed data, right? We need to have the most, so as soon as the data owner updates the data bank, we want to have that information inside of our SQL Server so that Power BI can draw from it, so that everybody else who's accessing that data has the most up-to-date data. Again, another very, very cheap and effective way of using it is you can use Microsoft Visual Studio. You can create a quick and dirty script to update that data. So here we have an example of our 6 sample Excel files hosted on our on our OneDrive. So we have our Excel source and we have our SQL database destination. You can repeat that, and of course this is a very, very simplistic example, but what I want to show you now is that I can execute this container and you can create this package. So it's going to go through and so all 6 of our files got updated. Fantastic. If we look at the package, so you can host this package on your SQL Server and it can run anytime you want. So you can run it every 30 minutes, every day, every year, every month as required. Now, if I go back to my SQL Server and I look at this table, we have the latest data into it, right? So it's as easy as that. It's a few small scripts aligning your data correctly, and then you're able to have the most recent data available to the whole project. So if we go back to our presentation, let me open it back up here. If we go back to our presentation, sorry guys, that's my bad here. We're gonna go back to the end. Let's see what we can do with it, right? So if we go to this slide here, now that we've taken care of the data bank, we've created our project cloud, and what are we gonna do to consume it? So I think Gregorio is gonna show us that.
So Danny, let me just summarize the process. So we put some Excel files into a folder. Okay, so and this is the data modeler, and that folder hopefully it's in OneDrive or SharePoint, so it is on the cloud. And then we take those data and we put them on a SQL Server. So my question is, why we do that? If we are already on SharePoint, why we need to go on SQL Server?
Oh, okay, I see. No, so very, very good point. I should have elaborated on that. So we certainly can access all the data from SharePoint or OneDrive or so on and so forth. The flexibility that we get by storing it in a structured format on SQL is that we can much easier create relationships, create kind of one-off relationships, so we can create all kinds of queries. It's much faster to access it by having it in SQL, and as you can see, the price point is very, very low. So the benefit is there are a lot of benefits to reap from the price perspective. And then everything is in one place in the same format, you know, which is very, very important. And so that's the reason why we advocate for that.
Yeah. So maybe another reason that I'm thinking of is that once those data are on a SQL server, you can connect them to the world. And as we're gonna see in a few minutes, there are hundreds of connectors that are able to connect with that. So, let's say in our example, Dan is the data modeler, has taken some data from the data bank and uploaded them onto the cloud in a SQL server. So now that he did this, what we do basically, we open Power BI, and in a few minutes we are able to access those data, and this is very important. Right now I'm in Rome, Dani is in Houston, so from anywhere in the world, I can access to those data. So this is Power BI, for those of you who are not, let's say, familiar with it. There is a wonderful button that is called the Get Data, and here you can get data from, let's say, hundreds and hundreds of connectors. So there is a full list. You can take data from Google, Google Analytics, DevOps, and so on and so forth, Python, Asana, and so on. And the one that we're going to choose this time is going to be Azure SQL Database. So once we select that, we connect, and it's just a matter of writing the server name and the database name. One click away, I click on OK, and I'm connected to Houston. So project in Houston, visual in Europe. So for the sake of this project, of this presentation, sorry, I'm not gonna do that since it requires 2 minutes more to, let's say, put all of this data. I already did that. But what you have here basically are all of the tables that Dani uploaded into the SQL server, okay? And from now on, creating a visual, it's just a matter of drag and drop. And let's do that. So basically, I'm gonna do just a few examples. So we can take, for example, from the AWP list, we can take the CWA. Okay, then we can take the AWPs. Okay, nice. Then for every EWP, I can add a CWP. Now it comes the fun part, because as you can see, I have made a drag and drop from one single table. But since we did some data modeling before doing all of these, we sat down, me and Dani, we shaped all of the tables, nice. We created relationships. So since we did some data modeling, what we can do basically is we can add to these visuals fields that are coming from other tables. So for example, I can take the CWP status and sum the amount of, let's say, budget man hours. So I can do the sum, okay, or I can do the sum of the earned man hours, for example. So for the sake of this presentation, we already produced an example, which is this one, to show you how effective it can be. And this, it takes 10 minutes, even less, to do that. So we have on the left the list of our CWPs with budget man hours and earned man hours. Then we have produced a Gantt. And on the bottom part, we have a pivot table with the sum of the man hours and the count of drawings. We have some nice counts, and then we can filter. For example, if you want to see what is the status of EWP1, we can filter and see the amount of hours that we have burned for the relative CWP, for example. One step away, it's the cloud. So there is this second magic button, which is publish. So once I click on this dashboard goes back to the cloud, and then it's available to all of the stakeholders of the project. And we close the loop. So, and I mean, the important part, the important take from this is that in any project, there are issues related with quality of data. and many times we don't address them, but it's really 1, 2, 3 team members and 10 minutes away to solve those problems and make your data effective. Danny, do you want to add something? Danny?
Oops, sorry, I was on mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah, so let's go back to the presentation. Let me share the screen back in the last slide, and then we'll wrap it up. We can take questions for the next 5-10 minutes. I don't have a hard stop, so if there are further questions, we can certainly go over. At least I can.
Sounds great. So yeah, we have in the past gone a little bit over. So for those who can't stick around, thanks for joining us. We do have 10 minutes as mentioned, so I'll just jump right in. I guess first of all, a real straightforward question. Is this conceptual or have you actually done this before?
Danny, you want to answer?
Okay, sure, I'll take that one. We are doing it. We've done it on multiple mega projects. It's not conceptual. A lot of times it can be a mix of different technology stacks. It could be just one like we've showed you here, but no, it is not. It is not conceptual. And the most benefit that we've got was really from aligning up front with the information management plan, the data management plan. We cannot stress that enough. You know, a lot of the other things will come together as long as you have that sanctioned and signed off by the directors.
Let me.
You go. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Let me add, Danny, that aside from being, let's say, our job, this is what we do. So on the daily work that we do, we also put some time to study. So it is changing every month. Without a continuous and constant study of what is available on the market, which are the new ways to do things, it's really difficult to stay on top.
Okay, excellent. And I'm wondering
just before you go to the next one, Stephen, is it okay if I take
absolutely, yeah, please do.
Sabrine's question? I see it was I think the first one, and it was surrounding the fact that we do have packages for IWPs, CWPs, EWPs, and so on and so forth. And I think the question is surrounding how do we manage the transfer to completions, you know, into subsystems and subsystems, into pre-commissioning and commissioning. And that one, I'll give you an example because I started my career as an electrician, so it's kind of close to my heart. But let me answer the question first. So what we do is, you know, part of that data management plan, which is aligning the data to the data, is we you know, part of what's required is to understand the components that are part of each system. You know, so when the PNIDs are become IFC and we understand the delineation of subsystems and systems, we create lists of all the components that are inside of those subsystems. Furthermore, we have lists throughout construction or files throughout construction that tell us or delineate all of the components that are part of IWPs and then further up the chain CWPs. So when it is time, you know, whatever that magic number is, 60, 70, 80% complete, and you start to focus solely on system completion, it is as easy as if you look back at our slide of our data model, you know, you would have another dimension and another fact table, right? So you would have another fact table, and your fact table would be your subsystems, and then your dimensions would be how do those subsystems relate back to my components inside of my IWPs, inside of my CWPs. And so, you know, that's worked really, really well. The first time I did that, it was when I was actually working as a work-phase planner and had to do it all manually. And then after I learned it the hard way, after that, I implemented it as part of the information management plan later on in my career. So that works really, really well. Another reason why that is super important, and this is the part where it's close to my heart from being E&I, electrical instrumentation, is that, you know, when you have hydro tests ready to go, what happens is the E&I team installs instruments as available, right? So as the pipes installed, they install them. If you do not create those relationships, exactly as we've described with components and IWPs and subsystems and test packs, what happens is the E&I team ends up installing instruments twice. They're happier than ever to go and install it and claim progress. When it's time to hydro test it, the piping guys come along and they take those instruments down because there are the inline instruments that you obviously cannot hydro test to. And then when the hydro test is complete and it's been reinstated, you're paying E&I to go back and install the instrument again. And if they shot the loop test before it was hydro test, then guess what? You're paying for the loop test again. So creating those relationships, documenting them, and making them part of the requirements of your IM and data management plan is going to save you money and time. So hopefully I've answered that question. I don't know what else is on the docket there, Stephen.
Well, there is a good question from Kaylee, which is asking if, and is also linked to another question, if we were able to implement this kind of tools in smaller projects. And she's saying that basically resources are going to be less, and so this is kind of the kind of problem. So but of course, the smaller the project, the less resources you're gonna need. I personally did it on a 50 million project, a delay cooker, and it's yeah. I mean, I didn't have any problem. You just scale the data instead of having 20,000 rows, you have 1,000 rows. But the relationship, the methodology, the planning, they're still the same. So
yeah, I think that's a very good point, Gregorio. If you look at the smaller scale project, do you not create a project execution plan for that project? Of course you do, right? So just because the scale changes, does the level of safety that we expect change? No. Does the level of quality that we expect change? No. So the level of data and data integrity shouldn't change either.
No, and then there is an advantage in replicating the same model in multiple projects, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Copy paste.
Very good. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, right on. Hey, we're right at the end of our time. So I guess I know that we've got the option to run over, but for those folks that are going to stick around, I think we should do a quick summary. I'm just going to run through the slide that's up there really, and say that this is all about that data bank. You know, that if you go into this with an understanding that you need a central place for data, that essentially gives you the power to do all the stuff that we talked about today. It's inexpensive and simple. You guys demonstrated that. So there are people out there that have the skills that we need to build databases and to move information. You need to have a focused effort, which is you have to have a plan to do this. You have to have a plan to go there. You can't just let this happen by itself. It needs leadership and it needs a plan. And of course, the payoff is that you get data that allows you to make decisions based on facts and the truth. And you know, a lot of our decisions that we make on projects now don't have that luxury. So really, that's what the end payoff is we have the data that allows us to really understand the project. So anyway, so that's a quick summary of I think what we listened to today. Very good job, Gregorio, Danny. You guys kept that high enough level that we could understand it and still see that you know, that data is good. I know that we've also got the ability to go into the weeds when we need to, but it was good. It was data management based on packaging, and that's really what the AWP model is. So maybe I can hand it back to Stephen. Are you still on the line? You're going to wrap up for us?
I'm here. It's Lloyd.
Oh, Lloyd.
Just wanted to thank the people from Insight. I thought that was a really great presentation, lots of good information, and I'm sure there's going to be some soak time required. If you have any questions that weren't addressed today, please send them to us at, Steve, is it info at
Yeah,
ASI?
actually,
Yeah,
you know what I'd actually recommend? info@groupasi.com. Absolutely,
you.
you can reach us there. The community of practice LinkedIn group will include a link to that group for you when we send out the recording of this presentation, and recommend joining us there for a little more Q&A after the fact. We'd like to answer some more questions over there if Danny and Gregorio would be open to that.
Yeah, I
And of
certainly am.
course, oh, sorry, I was going to say, and of course, you always have the option of reaching out directly to Insight. Jeff, do you want to give the Insight URL?
Sure. So actually, if you want to have if any of the attendees would like to have a look at what data looks like, we've got a couple of places. Of course, you can go to www.insight-awp.com, but there's also one that is interesting, which is data that is an example of what we're talking about, and that is timeontools.com, which is one of the places where we've taken exactly what the boys just talked about, and Danny set up this site, pulled all of our Time on Tools data together and put it up there so you can actually crunch those numbers and have a look at some Time on Tools data yourself. So 2 sites that you can go to have a look around.
Great. I notice our numbers are starting to drop off because people are obviously going to their next meeting. So I'd like to thank Insight again and thank all of the attendees, and we'll end the meeting now. And if you have any questions, get back to us.
Hey, thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, boys.
Appreciate it.